Konnichiwa and ni hao, Ami Tuofo. That's how we Buddhists in Taiwan greet each other. That's Amitabha in the Chinese language. And if you happen to visit Taiwan after the pandemic is over, chances are big that you will encounter a Buddhist in Taiwan, because 80% of the population in Taiwan actually self-claim to be Buddhist. So if you just say Amitofo, you will be very well received. I hope you are not too tired at this moment, having listened to so many talks, wonderful talks. I myself have learned so much from each of the talks, but allow me to perhaps refresh you a little bit by playing just a very short chant or singing. Actually, lately I've been involved in experimenting this pop music style of singing Amitabha. So let me play this, and I will also like to send my best wishes to you through this. All right. May we all be, excuse me. I'm sorry. Actually, I was to speak.
Dr. Chang, it seems your audio has stopped. Could you please confirm your connection? Dr. Chang?
Well, perhaps Dr. Chang, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
Somehow the connection is
broken. Connection was lost.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me bring back my PowerPoint. Are you seeing my PowerPoint now?
Yes, but you will have to share the screen.
Yes, I am doing that. Okay, right. So you can see better now? Yes. Is this better? Good. Can you see now?
Yes.
Just to confirm?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so back to what I was trying to say. Thank you again for having me here, having me join and learn and to share some of my thoughts. Although actually this is definitely not my area of expertise. As Professor Singh briefly mentioned, I'm trained as a linguist. My role here is more representing, as one of the 8 joint presidents for International Buddhist Confederation. I'm trained Like I say, I did my master's and PhD in linguistics from the University of Hawaii. And having gone through all the formal trainings in phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, I never did try to learn Sanskrit or Pali languages. But I have chosen the track of anthropologically based linguistics, and I'm trained in ethnographic methods. And for the past 20 years, before the pandemic took place, professionally, I ran study abroad programs, all for world peace. So I received potentially 300 American universities. I received students to study the Chinese language and culture in Taiwan. And I taught linguistics, and I trained language teachers and translators. And I've been a volunteer for many international Buddhist communities, as Professor Singh has also kindly introduced. But what I can share, I feel, for this conference, for this gathering, is that throughout my years of extensive traveling in India, I have very deep karma with India and Japan. I have had puzzles. And it is because of this invitation to speak at this conference, I started to really dig inside to find answers for my puzzles. And so what I'm going to share with you will be an ethnographic account with Buddhist reflections and conclusions, more from a practitioner's perspective, as my Dharma name actually is Jing Xing, and pure faith, and I'm following Otani University's motto. I really appreciate this beautiful motto. Be real. I'm gonna just be real and follow my heart to share with you what I have observed. So, well, I've been a participant observer through extensive traveling with, all these ethnographic methods I carried with me. And to India, I've been to India tons of times. The first time in 2002. I landed in Delhi first, but very soon, I took off for Hyderabad. That was before the international terminal was, built. So it was like an eye-opening experience for me. And actually for that trip, I was sent by my employer, this NGO NPO, one of the largest NGO NPO organization named Council on International Educational Exchange based in the States. Back then, they sent me as a representative to escort many American professors in religions, history, philosophy to, Hyderabad, University of Hyderabad for an international faculty development seminar. And because my colleague heard that I'm a linguist, so they particularly schedule a trip, an additional trip actually, to Nagarjunakonda. And before I know what Nagarjunakonda was, really, that's how flexible, our Indian friends are. They just made it happen like that. And of course, I visited Delhi as well with a group of professors, Taj Mahal, and later I also joined our founding president of Sakyadhita International, Professor Kamalekshe Somo, all the way up to Spiti. That was my first trip. I made it up to the Indian side of Himalayas already. And then there were also many times of traveling to India through the IBC gathering for sure. And very different from other Buddhists. My first trip to Bodh Gaya, in Bihar, immediately I actually went to the court, not to the Mahabodhi temple. I went to the court to help settle some conditions to establish the Sanghamitra Institute in Bodh Gaya, for the nuns from the Himalayas, and also it's made into an international center for peace training. And I also organized the 13th Sakyadhita conference in Vaishali, 2013, which was a 7-day conference, followed by 8-day pilgrimage tour we brought to Vaishali, the wonderful place name mentioned by one, our professor in Norway too. We brought about 500, 600 participants from around 40 countries to Vaishali to have this great conference. And of course, before that, I also went to Vaishali several times in order to help organize. So that's my travel to India. And Japan, well, I have a so-called Haji husband, a great fan of Japan, who has, my husband has such a crush on Japan that he even decided to purchase real estate in Japan, in Kyoto. I have many friends in Japan. I have many Japanese friends, both Buddhists and non-Buddhists. And even till today, I've been singing every Sunday with a group of opera, singers in Japan. And my most recent visit before the pandemic was to Otani University in October 2019. So thank you once again, Professor Shobha Ranidash and our Otani University for having hosted me. Well, I mentioned, during my travels in Japan and in India, especially in Japan, I have, observed, because growing up in the Mahayana Chinese culture, although I didn't become a Buddhist until I went to Hawaii, that's my karma. And yet, having grown up in Taiwan, in the textbooks, in history, everything was telling me that, wow, Buddhism in Japan was transmitted from China. And my impression was from China only. That was my impression. So I'm learning a lot today. And so, of course, when I saw Zen Buddhism in Japan, no problem. Yeah, it's very similar. And that's what I expected. But then I also started recognizing a lot more figures not found in the Mahayana Chinese tradition. And I also started thinking, oh, were those influences from Shinto, maybe? And also in India, in Bodh Gaya, I saw a beautiful bridge connecting, from the Burmese Bihar side to the Sanghamitra Institute, across the river, there's this beautiful white bridge. And I asked, oh, who built that? It was the Japanese Buddhists who built that. And there were stupas in Bodh Gaya and also elsewhere. So the Japanese Buddhists have contributed to many, many things in India too. And so I also started to wonder a relationship. And also there were intermarriages, right, between the Japanese and Indian friends. I was, honestly quite surprised because in my, of course, very stereotypical mind and assumptions and understanding, the Japanese are super punctual and the Indians are super flexible. So to have intermarriage between the two sides was very, eye-opening, interesting, mind-opening to me. And I got very curious as well. And because of this invitation to join this conference to talk here, I started doing my research on the direct relationship between India and Japan. And of course, Buddhism is my particular concern. And after some Google researching, right, I found many useful information there, right there. The YouTube link, I believe that's a very well done work by the Indian diplomacy. Indian deities worship in Japan. I learned immediately so much about the transformation from India to Japan directly, and also how Buddhism influenced Japanese culture and religion. That's another YouTube link. And how an Indian monk changed Japan forever. That's a very wonderfully done animation cartoon, okay? Introducing Bodhisena, whose name has, come up in the previous talks. And I also read a couple of articles, starting with these two, Buddhism, a soft power tool in India-Japan cultural relations, and started to learn a little bit about the scholastic concerns, and also like the rising role of Buddhism in India's soft power strategy. I was only given like 2 weeks, to prepare this talk. So I haven't really digged enough to all those materials, but immediately, my initial thoughts and reflections, especially having like read a bit further into Bodhisana's story in Japan. So we know Venerable Bodhisana was, invited by the Japanese emperor to Nara. And also he was the one who inaugurated, right, who did an eye-opening for the big Buddha in Nara, in Todai-chi. But I already started thinking, where was Bodhisana found? It was found by a Japanese ambassador in China. So I thought of interconnectedness. And Buddhism, like in some of the articles I started reading, Buddhism as a tool for soft power. I started also reflecting upon the importance, just as actually our ambassador, our Indian ambassador to Japan has mentioned in his talk, opening remarks, how Buddhist philosophy, how great Buddhist philosophy is. And Buddhism itself, I think, need to be understood, practiced, and experimented before we can maximize that as a tool. And I'm actually very happy to learn that we have so many wonderful practitioners here trying to make this happen. All I want to say basically is, I think just like how I was under that wrong assumption, wrong impression that Buddhism in Japan was from China alone, having grown up in the Chinese speaking environment. I think we want to avoid traps of ethnocentrism. And we want to avoid, the same trap as like, okay, this religion is better than another, or we should have only one religion. I think we should consider very deeply and practice the Buddha's teachings. And that's why I entitled my talk as Re-exploring Buddhism Beyond Borders, Awakening and Reconnecting with the Buddha's teachings. And the fact that I'm speaking here as a Taiwanese, taking this title as one of the joint presidents of Delhi-based, India-based International Buddhist Confederation, I'm taking part in this. I think there's a reason for that. The Buddha's teachings in dependent origination, non-self, interconnectedness, interbeing. I truly believe that there's nothing so-called like just bilateral relationship. It's been always multilateral. So that's the point I hope to share, the message I'm carrying, hopefully to also contribute to this very auspicious gathering. So thank you very much for your kind attention. There's a picture taken back in Otani University, a very lovely mural I adore so much. And thank you again for having me here.